Gentlemen, thank you so much for coming. We are really, really honored to have you both here. Let's start with a story. You both started where, from a place where you were not successful, you didn't have any big support, you were not born extremely wealthy. How did it all start, Mr. President?
It was a long story. And but generally it started with cockroaches in the US. In the age of 27, I left our country. At that time it was Czechoslovakia, to the US, and I wanted to be immigrant there, to take the family there and to stay there. So I spent there 1.5 years working, constructing the houses and working in a small shop, and it was a tough time because I was working 100 hours a week, $4 per an hour, living in one small room in New Jersey with no air condition and cockroaches always around us. And at home I had a wife with 2 small children, and they were there, and I was in the US for 1.5 years. And in the end I decided it's American dream is not for me. Let's come back to Slovakia. But in the end, I bought the shares in one company which decided that maybe I could be for them a director in that time Czechoslovakia of the company. So after 1.5 years, I bought the shares. I returned back to my country, and in 4 weeks the company came to bankruptcy. So I lost all my money. I was 29 years old, no money, 2 small children, and thinking what to do. But one lesson which I learned in the US was just don't be afraid to go to business, to take the life into your own hands. And I was surprised in the US, really, the young people, they were just ready to go. Don't be afraid about the failures, just ready to go. So I said, okay, let's start, let's do something. 29 years old, no money. Just a lot of ideas. And because we are talking about here a lot about maybe about the startups, so I had several startups after that. I opened several companies which was always the same, empty room, maybe 1 table and 1 chair, just me and a great idea. And I opened several companies in Slovakia, then in Czech Republic, in Hungary, even in the US. From 80% of them came to bankruptcy. But the rest was working relatively well, and I've slowly become one of the company with 500 employees, the financial business. With my brother and my cousin, I was doing it for more than 10 years, and then I sold it. We sold it for 65 million euros.
So, Mr. President, you basically created the whole industry, which didn't exist in Slovakia before.
The truth is that when we started to do the financial business, banks were not willing to give loans to the people. They didn't trust the people. They were saying, the average salary it was 200 euros, and we would give them the loan. Unemployment was 24%, not personal loans. But we said, my brother, my cousin, and me, we trust our people, and we are ready to lend them. And so we started to giving them, and the people, we had fantastic payment discipline. The credit loss was less than 3%. And it's becoming very popular. We were tremendously successful. And so it was growing. And then when banks woke up, and GE was coming to our country, and ZLM and other big guys, we were very well established in the Slovak market. And once you build a good brand name, and once you do your service very well, then doesn't matter how strong guys are coming, how big companies coming to your country, you can beat them. GE already left our country, no chance to beat us. ZLM is still there, but our companies which we sold are still covering more than 60% of market share in this consumer retailing. So it was really, we started. It was a good timing. It was a good timing, good product. Of course, good people, and then not the easy part to get the money. But everything works together, and it becomes very successful.
So you came, you conquered, and what happened next?
Well, of course, becoming successful, I think I can see a lot of successful people. Sometimes you put yourself the question, what is the purpose of our life? Why we are here? Yeah, why? It's, becoming, of course, you have nice car, you have small private plane, you have everything, and you are starting to give this question, what is the real purpose? It's getting more and more, how it is? And I realized by myself that it is like a moral duty, if you become successful, try to return it back to the life, to society. So when I started doing for businesses, we immediately started to help poor people, orphanage, and other projects. And then when I became more and more successful, and we were able to sell our companies, I realized that could be a great potential if I sell my shares, if I sell our companies, to do for the rest of my life, to do, as per my feeling, the most useful thing, to help people. So once I sold the company, when we sold the company, I immediately established a charity, Good Angel, and the rest, I said, no business for me anymore.
Yeah.
That time even no politics. No politics, sorry. I didn't want, I was never involved in being a politician. I was never in any political party. I said I would help in my way the people. So we established a very successful charity which becomes in 8 years the most successful charity in our country and very transparent. It's for a long discussion, I don't want, this is for long run. But when I was doing a charity, I put there my own money, I was managing, I was working there, and visiting children oncology centers and spending a lot of time. Once I started visiting oncological centers, I realized several things. First, in our country, still some children are dying just because we don't have a good health care. Then I realized that families can become poor in poverty just because someone is sick in a family. Can you imagine that your child gets cancer and you would become poor because our social system doesn't support you? And the third thing which I realized that we have a very big corruption even in our country. Even doctors are corrupted. And then I realized, okay, the charity is a fantastic thing, but there are still a lot of things which I cannot change as being just in a charity. And that was then I said, okay, maybe it's a time to try to be a politician and to help a country from the top. So it was another startup then, 2 years ago with zero knowledge. Nobody knew me in our country, almost nobody knew me. And I started to run for a president. In the end, I was against our prime minister, whom everybody knows, and me, no one knew. So I started for this startup, doing this for 2 years, and then sometime, and I think you know the story, sometime really things can happen, and I won, and here today I am as a president.
And here we are today. Just for the audience, what you might not know is that Mr. President built a charity which turned 200,000 people into donors. And this is 4% of the population. It's quite amazing how this startup of a charity motivating people and making them think about others is really changing the atmosphere in the country and making people help each other. It's quite amazing. And the other thing which you might not know about our president is that he has unprecedented numbers behind him. There was a poll recently, last week, where over 72% of people approve of him, which is quite amazing. Now, like, big respect, Mr. President, for this. Eric, on to you. So, your story is really interesting in different ways, but nonetheless, it's really inspiring. Can you briefly summarize your life story until now from a business perspective?
Well, compared to what we just heard, I would summarize it as underachiever. I need to set my sights a bit higher. But can I also just say how amazingly lucky you are as a country to have an entrepreneur as president? Come on, that's just amazing. In fact, it's interesting because there is another city that has or had a fintech entrepreneur as a mayor, which was Michael Bloomberg. And so he did okay.
That's true.
So maybe there should be a new rule. If you want to be president or a mayor, you have to have been an entrepreneur. Is that a good rule? Can we make that rule?
You know, it's not. It's not so easy because becoming from business to be.
Yes, I remember. So the story is it's really interesting because it's fairly similar, but I'll make it short. So left school without any qualifications, with a very bad attitude. You know that kid in class that is the most disruptive? I can probably go down a hill on a skateboard faster than any other person, but it's not really good for you. But I really wasn't that interested in school. And I left school, became a tyre fitter. You know the people that change the tyres on the trucks on the road, you pass them by and they're in all weathers changing tyres. So that was me. And my brother said to me, my brother was working for a university on computers, and he said, "Oh, you're wasting your life." And he gave me this magical thing called a Sinclair ZX81 computer. Oh my God, what a piece of magic that was. And it completely transformed my life. As an intervention, it's made me think about interventions that you can do. Because I was slightly vandalous at the time. You know those antennas on cars that used to be telescopic? I took great pleasure in artistically shaping them for the owners when they came out in the morning. And I wasn't really doing anything purposeful. I was trying to be creative, trying to get recognition in some way. And then my brother gave me this computer, which was, he'd got rid of it because he got a Sinclair Spectrum, the color version. Ooh. But this is amazing. So I was writing little computer programs onto a tape cassette and taping it on and everything. And I felt powerful as an awkward teenager, I felt I could achieve something. It was an amazing intervention. And I showed my parents, and I was getting positive recognition. And my mates, and suddenly this was a whole new thing. But of course it was a bit late because I kind of left school writing my name on the top of the exam paper saying, that's about it. That's all you're getting from me. So it was tough because I had to relearn everything after that. But then I was given a great fortune of starting a number of businesses. I went for a few jobs and started a number of businesses. And in a similar way, I built three companies, really. The first two were completely rubbish. But I think that was a really valuable experience to know just how rubbish they could be, as you say, went bankrupt. Because you learn all the experience. And then I think I would say that I got lucky and started a business called Real Call, which then became, I had to do a real pivot because we ran out of money and couldn't prove it, and then it became Adeptra, which is the automation of credit card fraud prevention. In a typical entrepreneurial way, I had no idea what it was like to build a fintech company, a company in financial services. And that's the wonderful thing about entrepreneurs, isn't it? You don't know what you can't do, so you just try.
That's true.
If I'd known how hard it was, think about it, right? If I'd known how hard that was, I might not have tried. So a little bit of that is kind of handy. So we got very lucky, and in the end, but I became that very awkward founder. The one that the investors who put $43 million into the business over various rounds, they really did back it. I became a bit awkward because I didn't really know how to run a company that was 100 people. And so it was that founder that had to be managed out of the business. And so that was a terrific experience, something that I share with a lot of our founders here. We've got 176 companies at level 39, 176 founders, all experiencing a lot of these things at the moment. But in the end, moved on then to help the government with a global entrepreneur program, which is an inward investment program for entrepreneurs. And then I remember it was November 2010 when the Prime Minister of the UK announced the Tech City initiative, this amazing initiative that I was really surprised to see the Prime Minister of a national government, focusing a tech cluster in one small part of one city, the capital city. Because in a way he was saying to the rest of the country, wait, because we have to develop this cluster here. And that's kind of dangerous because the regions are wanting to know, why aren't you paying attention to us? You know, where's the support? So that's why I thought it was interesting. And eventually I was asked to help create the strategy for Tech City. As an entrepreneur that understood a bit about government and a bit about tech entrepreneurs, I was asked to help contribute towards the strategy for Tech City. And then I was asked to present it at number 10. This was really exciting. I said, I'll check my schedule, you know, see how busy I am. And it was amazing to get to number 10 and then present this strategy for Tech City. And then a few weeks later, they asked me to become the CEO of the Tech City organization. And that was working with the special advisors to the Prime Minister at number 10 and helping develop the tech cluster by shining a light. We came up with a strategy to really shine a light very intensely, very aggressively, a little too aggressively for the press, I would say, on the tech cluster. And we were bold. We made claims about, we wanted to rival Silicon Valley in some sector. And that was kind of a bold thing to say because, of course, the cynics would have said, well, just, you know, over-claiming, over-ambitious. But in the same way as being an entrepreneur, I really wanted to achieve something. I thought, well, I've got nothing to lose, I'll go for it. And so really enjoyed that 18 months. So that's a really telescoped sort of version of what happened. But,
so you built a cluster which is now world famous, and it's the biggest in Europe. People really come here to learn from it. And then you decided to move on and start something new.
Yeah, I think 18 months working for government is probably enough for someone like me. Probably. And them, I might hasten to add. And them. So we left best of friends. And so I was going to do another startup because, you know the trouble if you've done a company that's close to 100 million, you know you can do $1 billion business easily, right? You just know what to do. And that's what you think. That's where my mind is at the moment. So I was just going to go, okay, I'm going to find the one to do. And then I met Sir George Iacobescu, the chairman and chief executive of Canary Wharf Group, who we met today. And he was just the most amazing gentleman. In the age of my oldest daughter, 28 years old, he's built this whole city that we're in at the moment. An extraordinary
That's impressive.
achievement. And I thought, underachiever again. There's a pattern here. But then he asked me this incredibly important question, and a very mature question. He said, does this area have an authentic proposition, a real business case to make for tech companies? And so we came and we suggested this strategy of fintech and smart cities tech, because in those two sectors, the timing was right for fintech, there's a lot of financial services around, and in smart cities, they did build probably the smartest city in Europe, so they could speak with authority. And we launched this program called Cognicity recently for them. And it's become a very important part of the London tech cluster, but focusing thematically on our specialist areas.
This is really interesting, and it's especially interesting because both of you have started companies, sold it for a big amount, and then moved on and started something new. And the reason why we are here is because of the perspective. You both had a perspective of, you know exactly how to build successful companies, charities, how to run these companies without any problems. Now both of your perspectives changed. And now, Mr. President, you are thinking in the perspective of how to make a country successful. And Eric, you think in terms of how to make a city, an area successful. And this is why we'd like to find out what you know, what you think is necessary to build these areas, and what do you think are the next steps which should be used in the perspective of building successful clusters or countries. Mr. President, what are your key learnings from your past which you think are necessary to use in your change of perspective, how to build successful countries?
Yeah, one of the things which I learned in time being in business was, don't be afraid to have crazy ideas. Just don't be afraid to have it. And to try to do it. 95, 97% it just doesn't work. Because it was a crazy idea. But in the end, if there's something, you catch it and it goes, yes, you can be very, very successful. And Eric mentioned that he had a crazy idea, or they had a crazy idea, or saying that they want to move like Silicon Valley to London. We want to do the same in Slovakia. and you can imagine that and you know how tough it is, you know. But first, that's what I learned from a business. You have to have a vision. You have to have something where you can aim, that people can go to do something. That's why we have a saying that we have to move from iron to silicon. We have a great people. A lot of them are sitting here in this room. We have a great potential. Yes, we are not London. Yeah, but yes, there is something in our country, and I am trying using this business approach to showing, to motivate, and to go to move the society. Of course, being in business and being a politician, it's tremendous difference. In business, you want to measure what are your output. You put your planning. You put here as a president. It's much more about the thinking of people, about the motivation. I cannot make as a president a new business plan, but I can speak to you. Just go ahead. We are a great country, beautiful country with great people. Just go for it, and I am sure that we can make really the Slovakia world-class economy. So this is one, putting the vision, putting the ideas which should be really in front. And the second, of course, being in business, you know that business is, you can do business only when you have great people. So what I did is, of course, I tried to be with the great people, also being as a president, and to work with them, because really the people is the most important thing. If you have a great idea, but you don't have the right people, you cannot do it. You will be sooner or later lost. True. So you have an idea, you put the great people, and go. That's the two things which I tried from business to put as a politician to work with our country.
Yeah. So you want to go for it with great vision, with surrounding yourself by really smart people. Where do you start from? What has Slovakia to offer?
Wow, what is to offer? First, it's always amazed me when I visit. We have, most of you maybe know, we have a lot of car producers in our country. They use the technical skills of our people, which we had from the time of socialism. We had a lot of heavy industry. The bad ones, it didn't work, but the people were there. So we have Volkswagen, we have Peugeot, Citroën, Kia, and maybe one is coming. Another one is coming. And when I speak, let's say, with people in Volkswagen, they tell me, you know what, the best quality from any our factory around the world is going from Slovakia. If I speak with people from Whirlpool, and I speak with them, they tell me, you know what, the best quality is going from Slovakia, from all factories around the world. There is one German company, INA, and they have two factories with 8,000 people in our country. The best quality from all factories around the world is Slovakia. So we have a great people, and that's what I am saying. Well, if I have any opportunity to sell our country, to attract investor, or to tell our people to stay at home and work in our country, we have great people.
Yeah, I agree, and I have to say that on this stage, you might know that Slovakia is the world's biggest car producer in the world per capita, and we visited before level 39. And we had in Eric's event space last year in January a company called Cygic, which last year in January they had 35 million users. Today they have 100 million users. And it's a navigation company which is in the car tech cluster. So we don't only have car production facilities, but we also have upcoming companies. You might have seen the flying car, which was released yesterday at the embassy. Also an example of a successful advanced car tech cluster in Slovakia. So this is where the Slovakia is starting from, and there's also maybe the security tech companies like ESET, the world's fourth biggest antivirus company. Out of the top 10 antivirus companies in the world, 3 of them are in the region of Slovakia and Czech Republic. So there are some clusters already being shaped. Eric, back to you. If we talk about clusters, because you are the Europe's biggest expert on clusters, on building clusters. True?
So we do a little bit with clusters, yes. What would you like to know?
You just built this biggest cluster in Europe, and you know so much about what works, what doesn't work.
Yeah.
What did you bring with you from having founded Tech City UK into Level 39?
Okay, so in the Tech City example, that was directly working with government.
Yeah.
And the trick there was to figure out how to amplify the existing cluster and the work without annoying them too much. Because remember, the worst thing that a startup, an entrepreneur wants to hear is, "Hi, I'm from the government, I'm going to help." You know, it's like, do you have to? So you have to somehow gain the confidence of your community that you're talking to, that you're there to amplify the small grass shoots. And one of the things that we did, not as well as we would like to, but it was one of the best things, is to shine a light on advocacy and the existing mentors in the community.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I've just seen somebody here, he's going to be really embarrassed I'm going to say this, but there's a guy that I met once, his name's Mike Southland. Mike, raise your hand, wave.
Mike, yeah.
This man has more energy in his little finger. I had to lie down after my first meeting with him. And he wrote the Beer Mat Entrepreneur, so he provided information, and shining a light on them, and then having people like that help develop and be advocates, because what we've got to do is to say, it's okay to be ambitious, okay? It's okay to be bold. You know, it's interesting, because think about from when we're kids, right? We're told by our parents to stop showing off, yeah? It's a very European thing not to be overreaching and to everybody is kind of the same. And I think that there's a cultural change that we have to inspire, but maybe not go too far, because then what happens is the naysayers will have too loud a voice, and you've got to calibrate how ambitious you are, and definitely shine a light on your champions and make sure that your advocates are there. So I would say getting the belief of the community to get behind your ambition is an incredibly important first base. And then just go at it like crazy after that.
But this is the base. This is the same for the country. You know, really giving the inspiration, and that's really works also in a business. Giving the emotion, because the thing how we decide in our head is very by emotion. If we put really, if you inspire, if you give strong emotion, if you put it, then it's like the cluster. It can go.
I agree. We have a question here from Slido, and for you in the audience and also people watching us online, you can go to slido.com and just use the hashtag SGL, and you can ask your questions. You can vote for questions you like, and we'll be taking them. Eric, in this context, we have a question for you. In your opinion, is Silicon Valley success replicable? Do you see London and where do you see London and Slovakia in the world of startups?
So one thing I can guarantee you is definitely replicable is the ambition of Silicon Valley and the characteristics of Silicon Valley. I would say don't try to be Silicon Valley, because you need to arrange for a world-class university, you need to arrange for government contracts and DARPANET and things like that.
Yeah.
That's history, you know. What we should take from Silicon Valley are the best lessons of the ambition and maybe a little bit about the risk-taking attitude that's there. And you said a terrific, you said it very quickly in the beginning, but don't be frightened of failure. That don't fear failure is such an important thing to feel right here. If I could figure out how to transmit that to more people, especially university students who kind of want to just go into big companies, which is important, but it's also important to let them not be frightened of failure. So, I don't know, is that a useful answer?
Very useful, very useful. It's really inspirational if you don't have the fear of failure. And we've been yesterday with McKinsey, spent the whole afternoon discussing issues, how to help people decide for being an entrepreneur, and helping to inspire people with successful case studies with companies who have made it, can really make people fear less the failure, because failure is not bad. It's a learning mechanism, And you can keep failing until you succeed. And both of you are the example of that.
Can I say, I think it's interesting because McKinsey would be the right people to ask to study this.
Yeah.
But I would suggest you go and ask other entrepreneurs about how to do it.
Exactly.
If that's helpful.
This is true. And
Yeah.
we had actually a room full of scale-ups, fast-growing companies
great,
in the
yeah.
room.
Organized by McKinsey. Good
Organized
thing
by
to ask
McKinsey.
them to do,
Yes, yes. So if we can go into the next topic, is quite similar to building clusters and making sure they work well. One of the biggest and best performing engines of a successful cluster are the scale-ups, the companies which are growing fast.
Yeah.
And the question is, what is, in your opinion, the best way to make sure the scale-ups are going to be there, they are helped, and they can be... What are the key elements of helping scale-ups to kickstart the cluster and the economy?
Wow. How to grow faster? You know, it's always the most difficult task is to have a look like 5 years ahead, to have this, to think what could happen. Is this pen how we write today? Is it correct? It would be the same in 5 years, in 10 years. It is to think in the front, to think always at least, maybe nowadays 1 year is enough, or maybe too long. But when I was in business, we always try to think how the things could be changed in a couple of years. And there is one very nice saying: if you do not innovate, you would fail sooner or later. So even the first financial business which I started, it was really like not fast growing, it was relatively slow. I expected to have 1,000 contracts per month. First month we had 50, then we had 40, next month 8. And then we started to innovate. Once we touched it, we had this feeling. We started to innovate, and in 2 years, in 1 month, we had 27,000 contracts. So from the plan going to 1,000 in 1 month, it was 27,000. So to make it speedy, to make it really fast, you have to, of course, to have this encouraged to go for it, try it, don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Just go, to take the risk. And then to be ready very, very soon to innovate and to change it, to think what can be done and just do it. But this is very important also, and I can see like in the charity Good Angel, which I established, I am always now, because I am not involved anymore in direct managing, I'm always saying the people who are managing, yes, right now you are the most successful charity in Slovakia, but please think today what could be changed, how to innovate. And this is not easy if you are running well, if you are satisfied to change the things. It's sometimes too complicated because we as a person, we are a little bit lazy. We would like to do the same every day. We don't want always to change the things. And if you push your people, especially when the company is doing very well, to change the things, this is not easy. And that's innovate and to think ahead.
Oh, yeah. You said that we need to look forward at least 5 years ahead. I have to say that you helped some companies to look 20 years ahead, because last September you took them on a journey around the US. You took them to Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and I was lucky to be there, and it was amazing how much we've learned from this trip. And you inspired the people also with showing them that we have to learn from the best. And because you chose the companies which are fast growing to learn even faster, they can be inspiring the whole new generation of startups and entrepreneurs, which is quite interesting. And so thanks for doing this and inspiring these guys, and made them look not 5 years ahead but 20. Eric, in level 39, you have companies there and you learn them to grow faster. What are the key areas how you help them?
Before I answer that, I also want to answer part of that question, because I really love this topic.
Sure, yeah.
And I just seen a question come up, which is very relevant, so I'm going to try and answer it, which is, it starts at school. It definitely must be something that at school, I don't ever remember somebody coming in saying, you know, Eric, you could be a doctor, you could be a nurse, you could be a whatever. Don't laugh, I could be a nurse. Or you could be an entrepreneur if you're really lucky. I don't remember that message. So I think at school it would be great to see more entrepreneurs. Now there's some really good programs been launched in the UK about this, where to get, you know, established entrepreneurs to go and give these kind of talks in school, so it becomes natural. People will behave in the way society tells them is okay to behave in. So it just needs to become more natural. So I would answer that. To answer the question about how we work and to help scale-ups, well, we're very fortunate that we're in an ecosystem that is very supportive now of super growth businesses, of very fast-growing businesses. It wasn't always the way. And there's a couple of initiatives that my successors in Tech City are doing. For example, they've got the Future 50 program. Now, the Future 50 is a very interesting idea because what it does, firstly, it celebrates in a very public way, you know, the top 50 high potential companies, you know, the ones that are growing fast, and it provides this amazing concierge service to them to help solve the problems and help them think through what the next challenges are in terms of financing and scaling, and of course, getting the network, all the other successful entrepreneurs to help them through mentoring. And by the way, just a little tip on mentoring. If you're in a startup, my feeling was to try to share some of my equity with everyone. Find a mentor that has no equity in you, but cares about you, who will tell you the truth. Fantastically important thing that I forgot to do. And so, you know, when I was offered the down rounds, people were worried they're going to lose their shares, weren't giving me advice about me to help me. So find a personal mentor. That's interesting. So is an important lesson.
I had yesterday a very nice discussion with Prince Charles about his charity helping. And you know what? And
I had a nice conversation with my mum.
And now I know what I will do, what maybe my next charity would look like after finishing being a president. And I love that. And it's continuing with your words. He found about 7,000 persons, real professionals, who help startups for free, not have any stock. But really good professionals helping startups. Because this is really exactly what young people need. They need to get advice. Is it good? Is it the product good? Is it the price good? Is it the whatever? They need something you can speak with who are really good. And he found and organized 7,000 good professionals to help startups. So, yes, you are absolutely right. We need these people, for young people, to help them.
And as the president's here, can I mention policy?
Sure.
May as well, right? The one thing I noticed in the Tech City work that we did, and it's probably one of the things that I am most proud of, is that they promised me that we would have a direct channel to policymakers, okay, a really direct channel. And I wasn't sure if they were telling me the truth because, you know, previously I had no real experience of that level of government, so I didn't know. And so I said, so I meet an entrepreneur, and they say, look, I'm having a problem with this cash flow because I'm investing in R&D. I can only claim the R&D tax credit back then. Maybe if we did something to help. So I said, do I genuinely have a direct channel, a way of talking to policymakers to see? And they said, absolutely. And by golly, they were very truthful. So during the time we were there, I would meet startups all the time that have ideas. I would be sending text messages to number 10 saying, what about this? What about that? Getting answers back. This accessibility is unprecedented. And I would say that it resulted in 5 major policy changes. That we were not making the policy. So number 10 and the policymakers were making the policy. But they had direct input from startups. And through all the work they did, even before I started, with things like the entrepreneur's visa and the 5 policies that send a very clear signal to startups and investors that you're sharing the risk, you understand it behind them. It's a huge thing. It's probably the main lever that we have, isn't it? Is policy.
Yeah, and that's, for example, as I see my role as a president, and I am glad that our government really tried to think now in a way how to support startups. And that's the things what has to be done.
Yeah, talking about policy, Eric, you did this before, and what are the key areas you think policy makers can help startups without bothering them too much?
Yeah. So, I mean, I have personal views on it that are not shared by everyone. So you don't take what I'm saying as the right thing here. I have a fairly strong views about grants, in that I worry about them so much that they create dependency. And it isn't a perfect solution, but I also know that government intervention should be at the point where there's market failure or it needs to kickstart something.
That's interesting.
And so I believe that if you are going to do grants, you must have, in every grant you give, there's got to be the same amount of money spent on ensuring that there's a business model to be independent of the grant. Because I worry so much about conditioned response to the availability of grants. So that's something, just a warning, I suppose. I don't know if that's relevant to you, but I think that that's something I'm hugely believe in. My belief about, as an entrepreneur, is even if I had a completely radical idea that was not tested before, I should be able to find a team to go and find an investor who will take a risk with me. Now, of course, you need a pool of investors to do that. So maybe the intervention there is to stimulate investors to come. You know, maybe that's the thing to do. But I should be able to find people prepared to commercially take the risk for me. My last place to ask should be, I think, the government.
Yes.
One of the things what I have a strong feeling that where politicians should help is really free digital market. One digital single market.
Agree.
Because, yes, for Slovakia, 5 million people, you have a great idea. You want to, and you want to be digital. And just in Austria, 20 kilometers from Bratislava, there is a different regulator, different rules for data protections. And that's what I think it's very important to really, EU, we have more than 500 million people. It's so great power. If anyone has now a good idea, has a market for more than 500 million people just like this.
That's true.
When I was opening business, Slovakia, 5 million. No chance to just go abroad because there were just different rules. Everything was just different. Now, more than 500 million people. And any idea which is good in your heads, it can be so easy to spread. But we have to, if there is anything what stop to spread the idea, we as a politicians, it's our duty to stop it.
I totally agree. And in Slovakia, there was Globsec last weekend, and we had over 12 heads of state in there. And there was a gentleman called Burton Lee, an expert from Stanford University, expert on scale-ups and expert on European companies and European countries. And he mentioned that in the US, interestingly, they don't have any issues with scale-ups because it's a big market. And that's one of the key reasons why single digital market is so important, because if a company scales and grows fast, they don't want to deal with issues like different regulation in different countries, setting up different legal frameworks for being present in each country. I totally agree with this point. Eric, in your accelerator, you're mentioning you have many companies. What are the key issues the fast-growing companies face?
So many. I would say finding the right talent is probably one of the most important ones. Finding the right people to share the challenge and to run up that hill together. I mean, that's one of the biggest difficulties. Finding the right technical talent is another challenge. Gosh, there's so many. We focus a lot in Level 39 on the first customer. There's other places that care about other things, but we care a lot about the first customer. And so we have over 100 mentors from the banks mainly that give their time free to help our companies. And we ask them, help them figure out, handhold them, chaperone them into their first pilot or customer, or just even to meet the potential customer, and ask that, the head of risk, the head of fraud, whoever it is, to come and share with them and tell them honestly how expensive the problem is. Not make it a supplier relationship, make it a partnership to try to develop their product and service. So the mentoring that helps them find their first customer is probably the biggest challenge I think that they overcome. And then once they've got their first customers and they're getting lots of customers, planning before that curve so they don't screw up the customer service as so many people do, because totally underestimating that can destroy a fast-growing business.
That's true.
So I think there is a series. We run 7 hours of content each week about every topic that you can imagine. It's IP, it's everything, just bringing in more and more experts. But the thing that we think is, if you like, the key to it. People will happily invest in businesses that have some traction, that have some customers. So if we can help address that problem, that's the number one thing we like to focus on.
Okay, that's a very good point. And it's also linked with the fear of failure, because fast-growing companies are successful. Mr. President, there's a question for you from Slido, and the question is, what is your vision for schools where innovations and entrepreneurship can start? Is your vision on the educational system?
Education is absolutely top for any country, because, of course, I think all of us understand that students now sitting in the schools in 10, 20 years would be the people who run our country, who run our companies. Mm-hmm. So the schools are our future. If I go to any university, I like visiting universities, speaking with young people and telling them, and I'm always, looking at their faces, how they are interested in things, how it is. And sometimes some universities you have a feeling that they are here just because they have to be there. And really, education is our future. And I will do in my next 4 years, which I have as a president, I put the schools together with healthcare and environment for startups and entrepreneurship. I put schools as absolutely my priority. Mm-hmm.
There is an interesting activity happening in Slovakia. A couple months ago, there was an event, a summit called Global Entrepreneurship Summit, which was put together by Michael Jacobsen. And interestingly, Michael is now starting an initiative which we are all proud of. It's called Enterprise Slovakia, which is a campaign similarly to Enterprise Nation in the UK and Startup Britain, which helped create over 1 million new businesses in the UK. So Mike is bringing this to Slovakia, and we are really excited because Mike decided to start with Slovakia and then eventually move this model to other Eastern European countries. So this is something where they can also help removing the fear, showing others how to do it, helping them. So it's a very good idea, quite interesting. When we talk about the key challenges and next steps, Eric, what do you see as the next steps for clusters? Do you think they need to fight with each other, or they need to connect? Or what is your vision for that?
Well, I think we should clone Michael Jacobsen. Maybe that'd be a good start, because he's a brilliant guy. So the next step for clusters, I think the thing that I would recommend a cluster is, we have so many people from all around the world visit our cluster to see what they can learn. Of course, we share everything, we explain how we do things. But at the end of the day, the one that will work is anything that focuses on the strengths of your own cluster and amplifies that. So hearing what you've all said today, I would say that Slovakia should be the #1 country in, mobility and automotive technology and, integrated transport and all that, I can see, because you must have an army of ideas and talent and well-known. So amplifying that would be a strategy to think about. Mm-hmm. And wherever we go, we're asked to advise on these clusters. I remember visiting somewhere recently, I won't say where it was, and they had a lot of land and a lot of people. And we said, okay, you should be agri-tech and use, thinking about how to develop, innate natural strengths to amplify those is how you become your own cluster and not try to copy what someone else does. Copy the spirit, copy the methods, borrow the best investing principles, the best policy, but definitely spend the time to try to think through who you are and what your strengths are, because more people will get behind it. The amplification effect will be greater.
It's a very good outline. Mr. President, what do you think is Slovakia's big reason for going out to the world and becoming strong, conquer the world? What do you think are the strengths of Slovakia in this sense, in sense of entrepreneurship and digital?
I do agree with Eric that we always should first anything when we want to grow. If you have a company or you have a startup and you want to grow, you should look at you as a person. Where are you unique? What is your competence? Where are you unique? And if you know where you are unique, what is the biggest advantage, and you build on it, it's of course much more probably that you really succeed. Of course, you can get an absolutely different idea, but then it's not so easy. And so I agree with Eric that first we should have a look on our own country where we are the best in. Yes, you are right. We have a lot of now car industry, and we could try to make clusters or around it. But the truth is that mostly these car innovations are not done in Slovakia, and this is the problem. There is a part which make innovation in Slovakia, but they very often try to do the development, the research in their own countries. But this has been already changed in several of them, and this make things better. But yes, that's true. But we have, as we said, we have here people from ISET. How to pronounce correctly. So we have SIGIC. We have other strong companies which we can build on and go around it. So, and in the end, of course, I finish with my best. What I have already said that we have great people. But coming from great people, trying to find what is our competence, where are we the best in? Of course, it's a rule for all of us. Everyone who wants to help our country, we all together, we have to think what to do, to sit down and where we are best in and how we can do it. We have fantastic IT cluster in Košice with 7,000 IT people. So there is a group of people going around. We have ISET, we have in Bratislava, we have a car industry. And it's really up to us to see where is our uniqueness, where is what we are best in, and how to build on it, and how to be a better on it.
Eric, in your case, Level 39 just conquered the Fintech space in Europe. It's the biggest Fintech accelerator. Now we opened also Cognicity, which is the smart cities part of Level 39. Do you want to keep conquering London, or do you want to start expanding outside of London?
Well, we've taken our time before expanding internationally because we really wanted to get it right here. Because this area, Canary Wharf, is an area that 2 years ago, if I'd said, "Oh, we're going to have 176, high-tech companies here," you would have said, "Nah, you're smoking your socks." So it is a transformation that's happened here. But I have to say that it is because once we came up with a strategy, and it was backed by Canary Wharf Group, they were very sincere about making sure and supporting us in execution. In fact, as Sir George was saying to me, and he's a grown-up, I'm going to put it that way, he's a wise man, he said, "Faster, why so slow?" It's not the kind of thing that you normally hear from the backer and supporter. So they're very clear that they want to be, that they're investing deeply in this for the long term. So finding the right partners to do it is important. So the answer is we're absolutely open to doing it elsewhere, but it would be definitely somewhere where we would have the right partners to support somebody equally ambitious as Canary Wharf.
Yeah, it's quite impressive how much you've grown. You're just conquering level by level by level in the building. And the companies are there, you can see them succeeding very fast. You have lots of people coming in, many mentors, and people keep talking about Level 39 in a very good way. Mr. President, coming to Slovakia and your digital vision for Slovakia, what do you think are the biggest challenges Slovakia will face when realizing your vision of becoming one of the best hotspots for technology and digital in the world?
Education, universities, connection with the practice. We have here couple rectors for technical universities. And this is what is our biggest challenge. To give. If we say yes, we have a good people, and we have, but still, even if we have a good people, they need to get a good education.
Yeah.
So education is the biggest challenge, and the second, as I mentioned before, to make a digital single market is another challenge for us. And Slovakia will be presidency for the EU in June 2016, and this is one of the topic of our agenda to push for digital single.
I can't underscore how important it is what's just been said, and I don't think people yet understand that what happens if that doesn't happen, right? It's interesting, this government asked me to support again in this election, and I don't like to stick my neck out for too many people, but I said yes, except about Europe, I believe that we have to have this. For US and international investors, we only just about managed to present ourselves as a single addressable market. Only just. Okay? So every tiny barrier that's put up to prevent that, we have to fight it tooth and nail. So if any of you have ever not read about it, start reading about it and support him when he does this, because we've got to make sure that this is fully accessible. Think about it this way. We all have the privilege of using the web, right? Why? Because it's an open standard without barrier. Nobody can charge us. It's not completely open, I know, but it's as open as it can be. And what amazing economies and businesses have been built on that.
Yeah.
The same thing applies to digital products and services sold internationally. It has to be, well, the word is in English, without let or hindrance. It's also without taxation. So, I will back you in anything that you do about that. So consider me signed up.
Very nice.
Thank you.
You talk about the barriers. Before we go and ask some questions from the audience, please get the mics ready. There's a nice question here from Mr. President, for Mike. The question is, in your view, what is the single factor responsible for holding back entrepreneurs in Slovakia?
For holding back, you mean keeping them?
From holding back from starting a company.
From success.
Yeah, holding back from success.
Yes, politicians.
Very good answer.
Yes, politicians. They, it's not. But this is not an easy, to. I am right-oriented. Our government is more left-oriented. And it's not easy to persuade. We had last year long discussion about new labor law, which makes our country again less competitive, because its labor law makes more flexible for our business to work with people. And me as a president, I put a veto on it. But in our country, the parliament can overvote you. So although I put all my energy to explain that we cannot, that this is not just, this is a bad thing, it didn't work, and I am always saying, if we want to have a good country, and unemployment is always the biggest, we still have more than 10%. If we want to think about unemployment, we should think about the people who makes jobs, about the entrepreneurs, how to help them. And if we help them, then we will have a jobs. Now, the left-oriented, that's not only our country, but it's also in other countries, are saying, no, we have to take care of people who work, not about the men who produce jobs. But this is always the world discussion, whether to go in this direction or in that. Of course, the somewhere in the middle, it's the answer. But yes, if there is anything, it's still our politicians.
I'd like to ask the same question to Eric. What do you think, Eric, is the key factor holding back people from succeeding?
I think it's probably their own belief that they're capable of it the first time they try. It's funny, we do this. We do these access to innovation days for big companies, and we introduce them to entrepreneurs and things. And so we had the head of a very large bank in recently, and he was with his top 20 executives. And we were talking about agility and, you know, how you feel as an entrepreneur. And he said, come on, Eric, how can I have this team feel like your startups do? I said, that's easy. Take their salary away. Right, think about it. Because, because if they had to create a product, market it, make a brochure, build the product, find a customer, sell it, service support it, before you made a profit and then paid a salary, they would behave very differently, wouldn't they? So somehow injecting that spirit is what entrepreneurship, I think, is. It's the bravest people on the planet. I really do think so.
That's very interesting. Okay, let's go to the audience and ask some questions from the audience. We have time for a couple of them. So get your questions ready. We have mics here. Anybody who is curious to find something from our speakers?
Mr. President, how can small companies here can work with you in Slovakia and supporting the development of your country?
How you can help us to? Easy. You can see how many people from Slovakia are here,
Exactly.
and they are.
How can we do?
You know, this is. We are coming back to the, of course, to the basic of a business. As anyone has his own competitiveness,
Yes.
and anything you feel that you are good in, and you have a feeling that, like I tell you my example, like the charity Good Angel, it started to be very successful in Slovakia. Immediately, of course, becoming successful in Slovakia, I did a franchise or sister company Good Angel in Czech Republic. And in Czech Republic becomes very successful charity again. So anyone who has a good idea is just more than welcome in our country. And there is always the question whether to make a joint venture with someone or to give support for some startups or to open its own company and to hire the best Slovak people. Anyone who is coming is just more than welcome. So just please come.
Yeah. Eric, do you have any Slovak companies in your accelerator? Or any people from Slovakia?
I don't know. I'm sorry, I should know, but I don't. I know that we have 23 nations, and I know that in our Cognicity program we do, but I don't know about the rest of the accelerator. Sorry.
But there is a very nice question, one which I can see here, and I like it. What? It already disappeared. There was what is recommendation for startups? What was the failure, or what not to do?
What was the most difficult decision in your entrepreneurial career?
Yes, and you know what it is, and this is very important. If I sit with young people and we talk about startups, about the ideas, it happens to all of us that if we have an idea, you know, and it's a great idea, and we just persuade ourselves that the idea is so great, it's so fantastic, and then all the older guys, they don't want to listen to us, they are too old, I have such a great idea. And this is the lesson which I learned in my life, and it took me a long time before I realized that sometimes our best ideas are really absolutely crazy, and it would not work. And to have this ability to come back from this fantastic idea before you spend so much money and you have to fire then people and everything, it happened in my life several times. To have a good reflection to step back. And although I did several, like before launching the product, I did research. We tested with focus group and we asked everything. We did our best, and I was so sure that the idea would work, and it didn't. And so this is one of the very important lessons, by being so sure by ourselves that it would work, that sometimes it would not, and then to be able to step back. So that's just which I wanted
exactly
to say.
what the startups are learning as a product market fit. And Eric just said he wanted to make sure the model is fine-tuned before you expand it. So it's exactly what what a startup role is learning, and it's very, very important to really get the right product for the right customers and test it.
And the way that you step up, it doesn't mean that you don't, okay, I will get out of business. No, it's just the way how you have to think.
Yes.
How to go maybe in different way. When I was in charity and I saw the children really dying because of our bad healthcare, I get an idea that I would open perfect philanthropic children hospital in our country. Yeah, I had the idea, that yes, if it doesn't work, so. And then I spent about 2 years working on it. I put there about 500,000 euro from my own money. I hired the people and everything, and I was so sure that the idea could work. I spoke with the sponsor, with Orange, with the banks. So I made the structure, everything, everything was just, I saw it, and it didn't work. I had to fire people. I lost 500,000 euros. But then still our children were dying. So I was immediately thinking, so what to do? And then I said, I have to try to be a politician and to change it from the top. To be ready to step up, but not to lose the way you want to go.
Yeah, so you keep iterating until you find a way. And the way you found is to become a president and run it from the top. I have to share with the audience one story which is very important. I've heard about you during the charity time that there were occasions where you saw children having cancer and they couldn't be treated in the hospitals in Slovakia, so you occasionally put them in your car and you yourself were driving them to Vienna or to Austria to be treated. It became so often that you decided to change the system because this is not the way to solve problems. And is this true? Is this story true, or is it an urban legend?
No. First, once the child has a cancer, it gets the same treatment like here in London. The same chemotherapy is going. This is not the difference. But also true is that we don't have a good, sometimes diagnostic system. The tumors are not diagnosed well. Then we have a problem with the tumors which are on the very complicated part of your body. Yeah. And then, yes, the truth is that we try to arrange and to help them to make operation in Austria, for example, where oncologic orthopedic doctors are perfect. And even this can be paid by our insurance company, but our families were not able because they are poor to travel to Austria for the treatment. Yeah. So yes, really we help them to do it, but healthcare in our country, this is for 2 weeks discussion. Yeah. And I don't want to go really deeply. We are here for startups.
Yeah. I like the question, and Eric, I'd like to ask you the same thing. What was the hardest thing in your career as an entrepreneur which you had to make?
Oh, the hardest. I remember that. So it was a tricky one because I'm going to describe it as the hardest moment because, and just very briefly. So I think many people know that I struggled to make even the third business work, becoming very close to bankruptcy. And I put everything in. I am a big risk taker. I'll take big risks on everything, the house, the kids, all that kind of stuff. And I remember, it was very serious, handing back the keys to my house when my wife was pregnant with my third daughter. And I remember these words I said to her, I've almost got the business model right. And that took a lot of courage from her. Think about it. So that was very hard. But actually what it did is it helped me understand so much about the families of entrepreneurs and the partners. Because think about what they have to do. They have to support your dream, and they're not sure whether you're hell-bent on destroying yourself and the family, or actually it might work. But they still have to support. So we care quite a lot about that as well. And if I may say, just there's one other thing that I find very easy to say, and if I can pay you a compliment, let's start a business sometime. You are the kind of guy I want to go into business with.
Okay.
Let's take 2 more questions from the audience. We have one over there.
My name is Anton Čižmar. I'm from the Technical University of Košice. Mr. President, I'm very proud, and you have my sympathy because you finished the same faculty as I finished, Faculty of Electrical Engineering. I would like to invite you at my university to give the lecture to our students. What would be the title of the lecture? Thank you.
The title would be, "Don't be afraid to take your life into your own hands."
Thank you.
One more question from the audience. There's one more over there.
Hello, good evening. My name is Laura Kubika, and Mr. President, I wanted to ask you one question. I was reflecting on your personal story when you mentioned at the beginning that you started your own business, and at the very beginning when you were still in the US. And I wanted to ask, how did you overcome the fear of when at the time you had family and your children, you decided to start something on your own rather than getting into employment, which somehow provides, a safety net? Or maybe you didn't have that fear at all.
All of us had this fear. Whoever came in a business, you take the first loan from the bank, and the bank will ask you, so what are your guarantees, how you can secure the loan? So I came to my dad and I told, Daddy, you have a cottage. Could you please give me as a guarantee for the bank? He said, no, forget it. Just forget it. It's your idea. You do it. I will not give you any guarantees. And I didn't have anything, And what to do? And so you have a lot of this question. In the end, I had to we have to give 50% of share in our company to get the guarantees from other, investors.
Yeah.
And but anyway, of course, the question is always the question. We are all afraid about the new things, but you just that's why I would like, and I would love to go to your university also to tell the people, you have to try. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to fail. After each success is a lot of failures. Just don't be afraid. I failed so many times, and I am here. And it's just the failure is not the things which we should be afraid about. Just go. If you do not try, then you would never succeed. And in the end, there is one saying that in the end of our life, what we regret are not the things which went wrong, but the things which we wanted to do, but we didn't try. So don't worry and go and try.
Very nice. We take one more question from Slido, and the question is connected to the educational system, and we all keep going to the fear of failure and elements of helping students not to be afraid. But there are some other things where we can help students with entrepreneurship. Eric, in your experience in the UK, what do you see are the key elements how universities can help students to turn their heads towards entrepreneurship? Is it internship, or what are the key elements where you see are really working?
So internships are obviously one aspect of it, but always pay interns, by the way. Don't make them do it free. Just pay them something, yeah. Creates a good relationship. The other thing that we've done, or there's an organization in the UK that I hugely respect, and I really love what they've done. It's called Entrepreneur First. It's a bit like the Teach First thing, but it became Entrepreneur First. But what they did was very clever. They went to the big companies, the ones that normally hoover up the best graduates, and they said to them, look, we're going to run this program to encourage students, once they get their degree, to try a startup and to apply for a program. We'll support them, nurture them, just to try. And they said to the bigger companies, this is a good thing because it's at the time of their life, they can afford to take a bit of a risk. They've not got a mortgage and all that kind of stuff yet, so it's a good time for them to try. And by the experience of doing a startup. Even if they don't succeed, they will be better employees. You know how you join a big company and somebody comes in miraculously and plugs your computer in and it just works? In a startup, you have to figure out how to get the connectivity in, load the software on, pay for licenses, all that kind of stuff, you know, borrow some, all that.
Yeah.
And that costs, and so you're a round employee. So they persuaded these big companies to say they will be more valuable after they've gone through the program than if they had just come in the milk round, so favour them. So they've successfully created this amazing thing of multiple cohorts of Entrepreneur First, which is now very competitive to get into Entrepreneur First. So I recommend looking at that kind of thing.
Okay, now we have one more question, and I'd like to ask you, Mr. President, you've been here for the last 2 days here in the UK. And of course, now we know that apart from you having a new business with Eric, as an entrepreneur, what do you think are going to be the next steps which are necessary for us to not just come here once in a while, but building a bridge between those two countries, UK and Slovakia?
A good question. And like the meeting like we have here today, it's like a part of it. You know, again, looking where is our uniques? Our uniques are people. We have 200,000 Slovaks living in Britain. 200,000, and we have a lot of young professionals, very successful people. Some of them are sitting here, and they're always the best way. First thing is what to do is, and I am always saying this, our young people, sorry that I want to take them from your country, but I'm always saying, come on, come back and try to do also in our country. You get so much, you get so a lot of experience in your life, and if you have the feeling for a business and you get some experience here, just come on and do and help us to change our country. This is, of course, the one thing. The second is a typical business model that we ask the government, we ask the Prime Minister Cameron, please help us to bring your people to our country and to have a look. What are the opportunities? Why really we have the best quality of the products which are produced in our country comparing worldwide? How it is? And I think the quality is one of the key factor in success of any company. So there are these models, but sitting here in this room, I would say to all of you sitting here who live here, and if you have any idea, just please come back and try to think all together how to help our beautiful country.
Yeah. On this note, please join us in giving a huge round of applause to Mr. President Andrej Kiska. Also, Eric van der Kleijn.